Hey there, everyone, and welcome to another video. Welcome if you're new here, and it's great to see you again if you've been here before. So yes, this is another eclipse video. I don't know about you, but I'm done with eclipse season. It's not done with us yet, though, and that's the purpose of this video, is to give you some intel and insight into the energy of this eclipse, and as I often do with eclipse videos, taking it through the houses so you can get a sense of where the majority of this eclipse action is going to take place for you. And this is what makes this eclipse crunchy. I'm going to just come out with that word because it is sort of a punctuation point of a month that has got so much astrology crammed into it. We have this total solar eclipse in Aries, which is the sign that the sun's exalted in. So that's a really potent eclipse. We have the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction at 21 of Taurus. And then we have the Mars-Saturn conjunction that happens at 14 Pisces. And, we'll just throw a Mercury retrograde in there for just a little bit of extra fun. So it is a really big, big month. The other day, yesterday, maybe the day before, I put one of those question boxes on Instagram and just to get a bit of a feel for where everyone was at. And yeah, a lot of people are really feeling tired, exhausted, tense, frustrated, overwhelmed, just that sort of wanting to move forward, but feeling blocked or thwarted, either from a feeling perspective or, something has actually occurred that has stopped them from moving forward. So that really does kind of encapsulate much of the energy of this eclipse. So we'll go through the houses in a moment. But before that, I would love to make an announcement with you. And that is enrollment is now open for my contemporary astrology program, which I just call CAP for short. So it's the first year of a 2-year program where I take you from the very beginning of astrology through to being able to read charts. So if you would like to take your astrological knowledge to the next level, if you're new and you're curious and you would like to get more structured learning, then this course is going to be great for you. Now, it's 2024, and it's dawned on me that this is my 20th year as an astrologer. So if you would like to take advantage of that, the course is infused with so much practical wisdom, in addition to, the technical and the philosophical stuff as well. So I share with my students so much about the practicality of giving readings, explaining the energy of astrology that you're not going to find in textbooks. So I'm going to pop a link in the description below. There's payment plans, there's pay in full options. It's all run via an app, which you can also access online. It is a structured pace, but of course, life gets in the way. I get that. It happens to me sometimes too. So you do get lifetime access to the material. So you can learn at your own pace as well. Because we all know that despite our best intentions, there are occasions where we do have to prioritize other things. But as I said, the description for that will be in the show notes below. And of course, I will be chatting more about that between now and June 6th when we get started. So the eclipse energy. Wow, yeah, what can I say? Some eclipse seasons are just, they're notable, we feel them, and then there's others where they really show up in a very obvious and intense way. Now, what I think about this particular season is that it is infused with so much other astrological energy. It's almost hard to know, is it the grind of Mars Saturn? Is it this restless anticipation for change with Jupiter Uranus? Is it the feeling that the pathway is opening with a total solar eclipse in Aries, but also getting blocked in the confusion of Mercury retrograde, sort of peppering that eclipse. So there's so much here, but what I really want to try and do is sort of break down some of the major flavors for you, and give you some food for thought about how you can move forward over the next few weeks. We are in the eclipse tunnel at the moment. So in between the Libra lunar eclipse and this upcoming one in Aries, the total solar eclipse on the North Node. So it's this in-between time that is the most churny, that is the time and space feels different. Energy is heightened. There's fatigue, yet there's so much energy and stillness at the same time. This month, it's really, really big. But my take is that once we certainly get past the Mercury retrograde, which ends on the 25th, 26th, depending on your time zone, that's when we're going to start to feel some relief. The energy of March really starts to dissipate. We'll have Venus move into Taurus, we'll have Mars move into Aries, and then that will start to shift a lot of that sort of intensity and frustration that we're feeling right now. So the thing with April, while we do have the Mars-Saturn conjunction, we have the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, so much of the energy is sort of condensed into Aries, the sun, the eclipse, the Mercury retrograde. Venus is there now. And then, of course, at the very end of the month, it will be Mars. So there is a lot to this. So let's share the screen where you can see the eclipse. And this happens at 19 degrees of Aries. And you can see here that the North Node is just 4 degrees away from the eclipse. So this is going to qualify this one as a total solar eclipse. We've got Mercury retrograde at 24 of Aries. So technically Mercury is sort of backing into this eclipse, reversing back into it. We've got Venus, she's applying into the eclipse. So we've kind of got this sandwiched energy of Venus and Mercury, and they eventually make a conjunction this month. So it's almost like deals, agreements, negotiations are in the pipeline, but there's just a lot to get there before we get there, lot to go through before we get there. Now, what we also look for in eclipses is an aspect to the eclipse. So is there any planetary energy that's kind of maybe interfering or influencing the energy of the eclipse? And in this case, there isn't. So this is showing the eclipse up to be kind of like a pure shot of Aries energy. It's a new moon. The sun is exalted, and technically it's not the exaltation degree of the sun. It's technically the 19th degree. This is, if we want to get technical, this is the 20th degree. However, it's still super, super close to that range. So I would kind of give it like maybe a B- mark in that respect. So we've got that exalted sun in a very potent position of the zodiac and conjoin the North Node. So it's almost like the steam engine says, all systems are go, let's do this. But then the Mercury retrograde says, okay, but like, where are you going? Like, have you thought that through? Do you know the details? Have you crossed the T's and dotted the I's? Or are you just going through this Aries, screw it, let's do it, as Richard Branson would say, going at it with no real plan, with no real logistical backup there. The idea of a new moon with the North Node, an eclipse in Aries, this is the first sign of the zodiac, that return to light, that first cardinal fire. So there is an area of the life, of our lives, of our charts, where we are kind of chomping at the bit for progress, for change, for action, and for movement. Some independence, some of that pioneering type of energy, but we want to move forward with something, but there are these conditions that are saying, no, not yet. A, the Mercury retrograde, and also B, looking to the ruler of the eclipse, and that eclipse is Mars in Pisces. And that is applying, it's in a tight conjunction right now to Saturn. So this is, a grinder. Like, that's all I can say about that. It's almost like this passionate, unbridled enthusiasm, to quote a Seinfeld line there, of Mars, is kind of thwarted or blocked by the energy of Saturn. So collectively, I would anticipate that we could maybe see some kind of downfall of someone quite prominent or potent in their solar energy. So this could be leaders of countries, this could be celebrity figures, royalty. That's sort of classic textbook eclipse delineations. However, we also experience eclipses in our own lives. And while we may not have the downfall as such, unless you hold a very exalted position in your own life or in your own community, in your own job, this is going to really churn up an area of life where you really want to move forward with something. But the problem is you don't know where, you don't know how, or maybe you just don't have the energy right now. It's almost like there's all this fuel, all this gasoline, or this kerosene, but there's no log on the fire to give it a slower burn. So, personally, it does feel like a real grinder. And the previous eclipse that we had, which was the lunar eclipse in Libra, it seemed to bring a lot of energy of entanglement or disentanglement, maybe the closure or the closing down of a relationship, the way you feel about something, and maybe kind of recognizing that the togetherness that maybe you hoped for or wanted isn't going to be a part of that. And then after the disentanglement happens, it's kind of a case of, where to from here. And it's like we're on this pathway forward, but it hasn't opened up yet. And that's what I find that eclipses, particularly when they're involved with the North Node, it is a pathway that's opening, but Dorothy doesn't have the instructions to click her heels 3 times kind of thing. And that will come, but it might be about having to hold back a little bit of that unbridled enthusiasm of Aries and adopt some of the Mars Saturn flavors, which is it's in Pisces, so that emotional, mutable water. So it's a little bit about maybe some emotional maturity. Aries, for all its wonderful attributes, and I'm a big fan of Aries with the beholder of the South Node there, emotional maturity generally isn't its strong suit. So the Mars-Saturn conjunction is kind of asking us to, let's think about this before we take action. How do you feel about this? Let's just calm down, reduce, quell the reckless and restlessness of Aries, and let's just kind of feel our way into things rather than just kind of being a ram going head first in there. So a lot of the descriptions of Mars Saturn do talk about the idea of, the gas pedal and the brake. And while that can definitely be true, it can feel like you're running out of steam. Have you ever seen, you don't see it so much more with the more modern engines, but when someone's trying to like turn the key in the car in the morning and it's just kind of like grinding, it conks out, they flood with fuel because they're trying to go somewhere really quickly. Many moons ago, I had one of those cars where you had to slowly let out the choke. So I have a bit of experience with this kind of vibe. And you got to go because you're going to be late for work otherwise. But there's a sort of certain approach, like a easy as she goes approach, just gently letting out the choke, gently stimulating the fuel flow, and then you can kind of go. And I think that's the energy of this eclipse. It's kind of learning where to slow down, and intuitively Pisces understand that balance between moving an immovable object at the pace that it wants to go. So there is a certain stoic discipline when we're talking about Mars Saturn. It's frustrating, yes. Action can be thwarted. The energy of Aries wants to go really quick, but Mars Saturn says, well, no, like, what's your long-term goal? Are your long-term goals and your short-term goals aligned? Or are you just taking this willy-nilly action, hoping that, something, throwing something at the wall and hoping that it will stick? So this eclipse is sort of a little bit like taming the ram. We want to direct it in a way that has a slower burn than just cardinal fire. We want to add a little bit of that Mars Saturn into the mix and direct the energy of the head first rather than just going in blindly. Many moons ago, I lived in Sydney and I took a friend of mine who is an Aries to a place. I think I've told this story before. I don't know if it's on YouTube though. Um, I took her to a shopping center she'd never been before. And, I parked the car and we got out and we're making our way through the car park and she's just going. And I said to her, "You've never been here before. Do you even know where you're going?" And she's like, "No." But that wasn't enough to stop her. She was still taking the lead. And I do think there's some real, it was the funniest thing ever, the most classic example energy of Aries that I've experienced in a long time. And even though there's this Mars Saturn block, thwarted efforts, just like ramming into the brick wall, there's a sort of stoic discipline with that don't let the obstacle be the block. It's like the obstacle is the way, but there is this energy of strategy, of thinking things through that is really going to be the medicine for this eclipse. Also, another way that I think about this eclipse is the idea of polishing a diamond. It is the collision of impact, heat, and friction of Mars and Saturn is what creates a diamond, or a sword, if you like. The sword goes through some pretty heavy metal energy before it comes out really sharp and able to kind of wield wheel towards the direction that you want. So there's this energy here. If you spend a little bit of time sharpening the sword, it's going to be more efficient for what you want to do. So yes, there is that fire, there's that energy to burn, but it's just hold it back a little bit, get more details, sharpen the axe or the sword or the knife, whatever the thing may be, before you move forward. So that's kind of, I guess, the energy of the eclipse in a nutshell. I could talk about it for a really long time, and I haven't even really talked about the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. And I'm probably not going to do that on YouTube. I've done a big 1-hour video inside the golden circle. So I'm going to keep it there. And if you would like to access that, the link will be in the show notes below. Now, there's one other little insight I really do enjoy when it comes to analyzing eclipses, and this is Bernadette Brady's The Eagle and the Lark. And I'm just going to read out what she says about this eclipse in relationship to the Saros series. Inventiveness and flashes of genius are a hallmark of this Saros series. So we could probably see that there with the Jupiter-Uranus flavor. The individual will have initial leaps, insights, good ideas, visions, and vivid dreams. Vivid dreams is a massive thing with eclipses. And, the feedback that I've got in this eclipse season is definitely a thing. It's definitely a thing for me. It usually is anyway. But yeah, the dreams can be more clear, more vivid, or maybe you're someone who just generally doesn't tend to remember them, and then you will in eclipses. So this newfound inspiration will pull the person away from his or her social life or relationship, thereby causing strain in the private life. So as an example, everyone wants a piece of me right now. Aries is my 11th house, so it makes sense. But I'm just not feeling it. I'm just saying, no, not really keen, and pulling away from a lot of things. Harnessing my energy where I feel like it needs to go right now. So this is a time where a person needs to be free, if only for a few weeks. So again, the idea of that few weeks will also coincide really well with the Mercury station on the 25th and the 26th. Alrighty, so let's turn this screen back on. And what we'll do now is take a tour through the houses of the birth chart. Alrighty, so if you are an Aries or an Aries rising, I'm just going to turn this light down a little bit. If you're an Aries or an Aries rising, this is going to be, identity stuff. Who are you? And embracing the true self. Such massive openings for Aries right now. If you are Aries or Aries rising, there's a close down or a shutdown or a reevaluation in relationships. This isn't so much about what you need to do to keep a relationship flowing, alive, or vibrant. This isn't about going along to get along. This is almost being a pure Aries and figuring out, okay, who am I? What do I want? What am I doing? So this is sort of Aries on steroids. You're already quite apt at going your own way or doing things on your own terms with little consideration for others, all things being equal. So this eclipse is just going to kind of amplify that. Wherever we see the North Node, there is amplification. That all being said, though, with the ruler of the eclipse, Mars, in your 12th house, there's some kind of wrangling that's going on, some inner difficulty, inner conflict. Maybe there's a spiritual block, wrangling with with oneself, or wrangling with the past, or, the monsters under the bed, so to speak. There's almost this idea too of being careful what you wish for, because you probably will get it under this eclipse. So there is this sort of, move forward, thrust forward, but there's a little bit of a warning there. Do the inner work, be really honest with yourself, and you might be quite surprised by the answers that you come up with this one. And, the Jupiter Uranus is really about, embracing that confidence that whatever happens, moving ahead is definitely viable. So if you're Taurus rising, all of this eclipse energy happens in your 12th house, which is a difficult kind of place, but it also invites you to open up to the less practical components of your life and embrace intuition more. If anything, Aries is very instinctual. It can sort of survive on those instincts rather than the practical action. So it is trusting that. It might be trusting the messages in your dreams, opening yourself up to some kind of spiritual pathway, some inner healing, reflecting on the inner world rather than just the tangible realities. So the changes that you might really be wanting to bring forth with the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in your first house have to come from within first. So it's sort of like, I can't expect external changes unless I change within. It all starts from the self. So if you want change, you have to be that change. And you might have to think about a few things in that 12th house space. What are the thoughts you continually tell yourself? What are those inner narratives? And how might they be thwarting you, holding you back? Now, there might also be some friendship and group stuff as well, some challenges or difficulty around the friends, and maybe having to make some decisions and choices about the company that you keep. Wherever Saturn goes is going to pressure test that energy. And right now are the communities you're involved with, the friendship circles you have, are they in alignment with who you are? Maybe not so much who you are, but where you're going, because that's the area of life that's really changing, where you're going. Now, for Gemini and Gemini risings, this is a pretty dramatic one because it's the 11th house. And so this is your friendships, your groups, your communities, and also luck. So there are doors opening, there are massive opportunities here to really grow, to really expand, to be visible in a way that you may not be used to. But there's this energy of being seen, then feeling temporarily unseen, and then seen again. Then you add the energy of Mercury retrograde to that, which is your ascendant ruler. And this might be just feeling like that Skippy in the headlights. Skippy for us are kangaroos, in case you're not Australian, which is our version of deer in the headlights. Although kangaroos fight back, the deers are a little bit more docile. So it's a bit more danger down here. So, but the idea here is maybe thinking about whether it's friends, groups, communities, but also the idea of how you're viewed in the community too. So this could be in real life, it could be the online space. And then, of course, that Mars-Saturn conjunction in the 10th house is a little bit of a career stuff, maybe pressure testing, um, having to embrace some stoic discipline in the 10th house, which is not a Pisces 10th house natural forte. Changes with the company you keep, as I said, but also like not cutting your nose off despite your face professionally. So, say, for example, you might want to cut ties with your professional life and move into a more creative freedom space where you're maybe more liberated or independent, and creating a community around that. So let's just say you've got a job, but you want to develop a coaching business or a teaching business or something like that. But it might be this energy of yes, but not yet. And that's super frustrating because someone who is a Gemini rising, I am so sick of Uranus in my 12th house and Jupiter just sort of amplifying, exaggerating, making bigger that sense of discomfort and restlessness. So I think a lot of Gemini risings are like, come on, Jupiter, get out of the 12th. But there is this sort of halting energy. The good stuff's going to come, but you just may not see it in April. So it is almost sort of like, don't move forward too quickly for Gemini risings. Like, think about the longer term as you move forward the month of April. So the challenge is kind of like stay the course, be authentic, move into new circles, but lucky breakthroughs will come. But just with the caveat, not everything that glitters is gold, right? All right, Cancer and Cancer rising. All this action, the eclipse action, is in your professional life, what you do in the world. So there could be some really great opportunities, breakthroughs, amplification of what you're doing in the world. But then the challenge is, does this hold meaning and purpose for you? Personally, I see the ninth house as more the life direction / meaning and purpose house. And the 10th is kind of what you do to achieve that. And for some of us, what we do in the world, but what our meaning and purpose is not one and the same thing. For the majority of us, it's probably not. So this eclipse is going to really offer new opportunities for what you're doing in the world, right? This might be a new job, a new promotion, taking a leap in a new area that thrusts you forward professionally. But then there's this caveat. The challenge is, does that align with meaning and purpose to me? Can I stay the course of this? Can I commit to that purpose, even if it means having to take a pathway that I don't really want to take right now? So there's that sort of discipline, but also that authenticity piece in groups with that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. So there's a lot to do with the company you're keeping, what you're doing in the world, and is that aligned with a sense of meaning and purpose for you? So April is so much about really thinking things through. There might be frustration around what you want to do, what you feel called to do, but maybe, who and what you are at the moment not being the same thing. So I think there's some really potent opportunities to sort of realign life direction and career sort of coming together a little bit. Leo, I think this one's a bit exciting for the Leo risings, actually, because the sun is already in its joy in the ninth house. It does get blocked for a bit. So this can be like a re-emergence of a new worldview, a new perspective on life, exciting pathways to open up, whether that's through travel, whether that's through adventure and discovery, finding purpose, that can really open up for you. A few of my Leo rising clients actually have really been sort of struggling with like what purpose is or what the pathway is, what the actual calling or the destination of my life's all about. And particularly with Jupiter Uranus, rattling the professional cage, it might also be that realization that what I have been doing in the world is or is not aligned with that purpose. But then there's also a little bit of the frustration with Mars Saturn about the cold hard realities. Like, is it paying the bills? Is it bringing in the cash? Is it bringing some of that longer term financial security into question there? So there is a bit of a frustration with maybe money or resources, or maybe entanglements and commitments that you have that are preventing you from, leaping forward and doing what you want. Like, you might just want to pack your bags and move to another place on the planet. But if you've got mortgages or bills, no savings, whatever the situation may be, where you probably could, but it would be a little bit challenging. So it is trying to align purpose and aspiration with the practical realities of, those bills just keep on coming, right? So that's been the challenge from what I've seen for many Leo risings. All right, Virgos. Yeah, so again, it's a similar theme with finances really being amplified in the 8th house. So this can really bring in the North Node can really help you with debt, the acquisition of credit or bringing in more debt. But again, the Mercury retrograde, which is your ascendant ruler, the caveat here is do your research. Don't go in and sign up for a new credit card because they're offering this wonderful rate, or don't go and think that this is a too good to be true offer. And it may be, but just tick the boxes. Make sure you know what the fine print is, which is just your basic Mercury retrograde caveat, right? Maybe you're thinking about your longer term security in terms of superannuation or retirement and things like that. So there is some kind of action or impetus to do something that's got some longer term financial impact, whether it's paying down debt, whether it's saving or investing into your future. So there's a lot of due diligence that's required in order to embrace the potentiality of what this eclipse is bringing. I've also seen for some Virgo risings that this has got more to do with their spouse or a little bit more to do with, whether it's a personal or professional partner. So there might be some relationship challenges or blocks or stumbling blocks, getting on the same page with a financial issue. Maybe it's about, making a new commitment with somebody that involves the entanglement of finances or stuff together as well. So a lot of this eclipse energy is your stuff with other people. Do you want to continue the commitment, or do you need to liberate yourself from that commitment? It can go either way for Virgos. Now, Libra, okay, relationships, surprise, surprise with relationships, right? This is about you really honoring the disentanglement of your own energy and any habits or behaviors that have not allowed you to be your true self in a relationship. This also could be about facing or confronting an enemy. So the 7th house is also a house of open enemies. So you might be going into battle of some kind with, a partner, a relationship, or somebody that is an adversary to you. Maybe you're having to go over old ground in a relationship, those old issues that just keep being rehashed and rehashed with Mercury retrograde. But the caveat is don't do what you've always done. There has to be a new path or the course here with a solar eclipse in Aries. Life probably feels really grindy at the moment, pushing that proverbial uphill, with all of the Mars Saturn in the sixth house. Maybe some relationship stuff has been overlooked because you've been so busy in the trenches, trying to work, trying to do whatever it is that's showing up in the sixth house. Mars in the sixth house is just a punishing pace. So maybe you've been so busy, you haven't sort of noticed that a relationship issue is, becoming an issue. Good, bad, or indifferent, right? And then, of course, once you can overcome, address, figure out the challenges here, there can be some kind of liberation or breakthroughs in the eighth house space. So this might be some change in the finances, change in the entanglements that you share with other people, and some exciting progress there. So I feel like there's, not all is lost here with Libra, but the challenge is, with the South Node in your sign, you're already tired, you're already fatigued, you're already kind of, pushing the proverbial, as I mentioned. And when you feel like that, it can be very easy to just fall into old habits, do what you've always done. And that challenge is to kind of, Mars Saturn go, stop, no, I'm not going to do it like that anymore. And then, of course, that gets transposed into the seventh house of relationship. Alrighty, Scorpio, fatigue, exhaustion, emphasis on what you have to do rather than what you want. So there's a really interesting piece here because you've got the Mars Saturn in the fifth house. This could be a desire to take a romantic situation to a next level. This could also be the realization that a romantic situation that you're in is not going to go anywhere. Now, this could also have something to do with your creative life, a creative project, or something that you've been working on. And maybe it's time to sort of, amplify and exaggerate that with the sixth house of work, what you're actually doing in the day-to-day life, in the daily grind. So somehow it's maybe transposing the hard creative work or the hard creative efforts into the sixth house, where it can be of service to other people, where you can, make it like a creative project becoming a part of your work. And then, of course, there is the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction coming up. So that could maybe bring some, new levels of freedom and liberation in a committed relationship. So that could be the joining of forces, the separating of forces. A lot can happen in that sort of creative and romantic space. But there's also that I've got work to do. I have to take the practical realities as a reality, like the bills still need to get paid. And that may be the realization, like if you are tinkering at a creative project, can this pay my bills or not? Or maybe it is actually, rather than just creating a creation, like let's transpire it into something that actually is something that is a workable thing. So, let's just say, for example, if you've been creating a course, or you're creating artworks or social media stuff, whatever, like it's all great to have these passion projects. And I still believe in the passion project that doesn't have to earn you money. But with your configuration, maybe it is, okay, I've got to make this my work and take it a little bit more seriously. And the Jupiter-Uranus might be that expansion of clients, expansion of other people who are interested in what you have to offer. So if you're Scorpio rising, whatever you've been working on, maybe it's a time to really push it out there and see what can happen. Sagittarius, again, we've got a lot of creative energy here for Sagittarius. Sex, love, romance, joy, pleasure, fun for fun's sake. The fifth house is really, what do you want to do with yourself when the bills are paid and the jobs are done? Having fun. Yes, there might be some snafus and confusion and cross wires with Mercury retrograde there, But the focus or the blockage potentially might be with the home and family stuff as well. Maybe it's about new commitments to family dynamics. Maybe it's commitments with children. But there's also this sense that things have been harder than they should be, especially with that Jupiter Uranus in the sixth, everything that's like toil and trouble being exaggerated and a lot of restlessness there. But maybe the energy of this eclipse is, okay, committing to the foundation of my life, whether that's home, whether that's family, um, family relationships, maybe setting goals that can change that part of your life for the next 2 years, but have it be inspired maybe by children or creativity. Um, Maybe it is about taking a risk in that area, whether it's love, romance, a creative endeavor. But, have more fun, but stay true to whatever it is that you need to commit to. Capricorn, we have, I quite like this energy for Capricorn because the solar eclipse in your fourth house can help you really remember what your foundational priorities are. If you've been out there, working, climbing those proverbial summits, sometimes an eclipse in the fourth can sort of bring you down to earth a bit and help remind you of the reason why you work as hard as you do. Focus on family, focus on foundation, and maybe enjoying yourself a little bit more with some domestic influence there. Yeah, there might be some logistical issues. There might be some, paperwork and logistics, maybe around buying and selling real estate could be a thing as well. But there is a little bit of spicy excitement here as well with the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. Don't throw the babies out with the bathwater, still enjoy life. And there's also a little bit of personal development here. I love the third house and the idea of personal development. Maybe this is the realization too that you've come to the end of the road in a local environment or a local area. And this might be where the eclipse comes through and you're like, yeah, I need to move from where I'm located. I need to rent a new place. I need to relocate or buy or sell real estate. There's a lot of foundational stuff for you, but do have a little bit of excitement at the same time. Maybe you're having to make some of these changes in your domestic life to make room for impending children, extended family, relatives, and things like that. Okay, Aquarius. This is all in your third house, the bulk of the energy for April. As I said, I do like the third. And this is really, so there's so much going on because of this Pluto ingress as well. So you really are challenged to think differently about a lot of things right now. Doing what you've always done is not going to get you where you want to go. And so this is a real sort of thinking about your mind, thinking about what you need to learn, what can you get curious about, and how can you maybe expand or amplify that a little bit differently. And this might be thinking differently about a financial issue with the Mars-Saturn piece there. It could be about being more open to new opportunities to earn, to share your gifts and talents. And it could be an opportunity to sort of take some action in that way, commit to a new financial goal, but then having the courage to think differently about it. Maybe you have to do a little bit of an investment in yourself, learn more, discover more. And this might be so you can grow or expand your family or your living environment. And there's possibly, you can expect some dramatic changes through your familial relationships, through your domestic relationships or domestic situation, as Uranus and Jupiter finally make their conjunction. But there's a real third house emphasis for you. So thinking, communication, your local travel, your local environment, and what that might have to do with cash flow, and confidence. Now, Pisces and Pisces rising your physical energy is going to be pretty low, I can imagine right now, with that Mars Saturn building up in your first house. You know, Saturn's been there for a while now. And so the Mars conjunction may now be kind of, you know, the hard stuff's almost over, like you're coming to the end of the line with something. So it's almost like staying the course here, you know, maintaining the boundaries that you've been learning to develop, honoring what you need physically. And this might just be working like really super hard just to bring in extra additional income with this eclipse in Aries. It's kind of going for the jugular when it comes to earning cash, earning money, sharing your gifts, skills, and talents. There might be some delays with cash. There might be some confusion around money with that Mercury retrograde, which may in turn be the reason why you're having to work a little bit harder right now. And also too, your Jupiter, which is your ascendant ruler, is coming to join Uranus in your third house. So again, there's that idea of maybe having to do something differently, sort of that straddling that boundary for staying par for the course with Mars Saturn, but also being open to a new perspective, a new way of thinking, doing things a bit differently, learning and discovering more about yourself. The third house very much is a discovery house with that sextile back to the ascendant. So there we have it, a long one. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it's given you a little bit of clarity re the eclipse. And again, if you would love to dive into the April astrology more, there's always the Golden Circle. And if you would love to learn astrology with me, class opens June 6th and taking enrollments now. I'd love to hear about your eclipse season experiences thus far. Leave some comments below. I'd love to hear your experiences and see you in the next video.